Good afternoon. The last topic of this subject, or the last two topics, are international health and community health. Okay, so we'll first see what is international health. See, there are in international health, I'm going to teach you a lot more, which is some of which may not be relevant. So it will be in the notes. It is for your own idea that you have to read all these things. So I'm going to just give a superficial overview because it is going to talk about all the aspects of healthcare in the globe and how healthcare is developed as a system. Okay, so it includes WHO, United Nations, and all these organizations and the work that they are doing. Okay, so international health has two other names. It can also be called as geographic medicine or global health. So why we give these names is it deals with healthcare across the whole world or the whole globe. That's why it's called global health or geographic medicine. Okay, so it is across borders. See, as a medical professional, we need to understand that every healthcare problem is without boundaries. So the coronavirus is an apt example. It started in China, but now it's a global problem. So it can happen for any disease: cholera, diarrhea, dysentery, plague. So these are some of the public health problems that can become a global problem within no time, because these days people travel from one part of the world to another part very easily within few hours, and so the diseases can also travel within a few hours from one corner of the globe to other corners. Okay, so health and diseases have no political boundaries, or actually no boundaries, no any way of boundary. There is no boundary at all. So any disease can be a threat to any country, and if this coronavirus had not happened this year, you would have found it difficult to understand this concept. But now you know that how easily one disease can spread across the globe. There have been several diseases in the past that have traveled like this: plague and cholera and diseases like that, which are mainly carried by animals. So initially these diseases are caused because of human animal interaction, and then it starts spreading from one human to another when they travel. Okay, so in the last century, in 1920s, there was the Spanish flu. Before that, there was the plague. So like that, different diseases have been there. So 14th century itself, the plague was there in Europe, and people were quarantined. So quarantine has become a practice right from that time. So people who are exposed to the particular disease, they were quarantined and they were quarantined for 40 days during that time. The incubation period for coronavirus is 2 weeks. So we will know whether a person has been affected within 2 weeks. So that is why for coronavirus, the incubation period is 2 weeks or 14 days. But for certain diseases like the plague, the quarantine was for 40 days, so that the person who is affected does not spread the disease to other people. So right from those days, there have been several focuses on healthcare. So let us see the early health organizations and the year in which they were created. The first international sanitary conference happened in 1851. Then the Pan American Sanitary Bureau in 1902. So they concentrated mainly on hygiene and sanitation. Okay, so Office International de Hygiene Publique was in 1907. The Health Organization of League of Nations in 1923. The United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration in 1943, and birth of the WHO was in 1948. So let us briefly go over each of these. Okay, so the first International Sanitary Conference was convened in Paris in the year 1851, attended mainly by European countries. Okay, so they had a code for sanitation so that they can prevent diseases like cholera, plague, and yellow fever. But the conference happened, but none of the effects happened. Then the Pan American Sanitary Bureau, okay, in America in 1902, mainly for quarantine procedures for various diseases. And then Office International de Hygiene Publique, okay, so this was a permanent health bureau in the Paris, and various countries joined, including the British India. Okay, so it was running on till 1950, and it was mainly concerned about hygiene. Then After the First World War, the League of Nations was formed. So the based on this League of Nations, the health organization of League of Nations was formed in 1923. It was after the First World War. So it was not only concerned with quarantine, but also it looked into nutrition, housing, rural hygiene, and health worker training. So right from the 1900s, people understood that the importance of hygiene, nutrition, housing, and all these factors, because they all play an important role in health and disease. Okay, so they started publishing the weekly epidemiological report in 1939. Okay, even to this day, the WHO is publishing the WER, or the weekly epidemiological report on various diseases. Okay, even Karigiri Hospital, we get a copy of the WER by email. Okay, so it's widely published. You can access WERs on the internet. So it is mainly related to the statistics, epidemiology of various diseases around the globe. Then the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration was started in 1943, mainly because of the post World War II. So the previous organization was started because of World War I. This was started because of World War II. World War II caused a lot of death and displacement of millions of people around the globe, and whenever there is a war, there is a risk of epidemic diseases. Just like whenever there is a disaster, there is a risk of epidemic diseases. War also can cause epidemic diseases, because a lot of people travel and they spread diseases from one part of the world to the other part. So diseases like typhoid, malaria were spreading all over the world. So the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration did a lot of major work in the initial days after World War II to control these diseases. Finally, this organization and the work that it was doing was taken over by the WHO, or the World Health Organization. So World Health Organization was formed on 7th of April 1948. So this day, the 7th April, is considered to be the World Health Day every year. Okay, so the World Health Organization is present even up to today. So let us see what is WHO, or the World Health Organization. See, it is part of the United Nations, but you should understand that it is not under the United Nations. So it has equal power, or it is part of the United Nations, and it is a separate body. It has a separate budget, members, governing bodies, and its own constitution. Okay, so what is the main objective of World Health Organization is attainment by all peoples of the highest level of health. So the best health that is possible for every person. So that is the main objective. So the current objective, the present objective, is attainment by the all people of the world a level of health that will permit them to lead a socially and economically productive life. So every single individual in this world should have good health, so that they will lead socially and economically productive life. So if you are socially productive, then you have good relationship with everybody around you, and if you are economically productive, that means you are earning enough for yourself and your family members. So that way everybody will be happy. So that is the main objective of the WHO. So it is not only concerned about the health, but it is also concerned about social aspects and economic aspects. So you understand how sociology is very, very important. So the highest health body of the world gives an importance to economy, social aspects, and health. So they all three are related. So I hope now you understand the importance of sociology in healthcare. Okay, because even the WHO, see, just like how doctors are important, nurses are important, just the same way sociologists are important for healthcare prevention, disease prevention, sorry, not healthcare prevention, healthcare attainment and disease prevention. Okay, so that is what is very, very important that you have to understand. So membership of the WHO is open to all countries. So most of the countries are members of both the United Nations and the WHO. So initially in 1948, WHO had only 56 members. Now it has 194 members and 2 associate members. So let us see the functions of World Health Organization. They functions are to prevent and control of specific diseases like leprosy, coronavirus, and various other diseases. So we have to prevent and control the diseases. Then development of comprehensive health services. So all those sociologists who study about the society, they will know how the society works, and based on the society only we can develop health services. Okay, so that is why sociologists are very important in development of comprehensive health services. Then family health, you study about family, you study about environment, study about statistics. Okay, so all these are important aspects in healthcare. So sociologists play a role in all these aspects. Then biomedical research, so research can be done by everybody in healthcare, so that is biomedical research. Then health literature and information cooperation with other organizations. So these are the functions of WHO. So let us see the first one, prevention and control of specific diseases. Here the first is epidemiologic surveillance of communicable diseases. So we need to have surveillance or understanding about where the disease is spreading, where it is present, how it is occurring. So once you understand that, you will be able to control the disease. So same way, coronavirus, we are studying how it spread from Wuhan in China, how they controlled in China, how they controlled in other countries. So can it be replicated in countries where the disease is running very rampantly? Okay, so all these are important methods of prevention and control, and the WHO gives out frequent information about the importance of masks, how the disease spreads. So all these aspects will help us to understand about the disease and control it. It also helps in control of non-communicable diseases like cancer, cerebrovascular accidents or stroke as we call it, diabetes mellitus, mental disorders and drug addiction. Okay, so there is a weekly epidemiological report, as I said, which helps people to understand about the epidemiology of various diseases. Okay, then the next work of the WHO is to develop comprehensive health services. So here primary health program and all these other aspects, use of technology in healthcare. So these are some of the things that we have to understand. Then family health and environmental health. See, family is very important in prevention of any disease. We have studied the importance of family in controlling disease, and how good families, where there is happiness in the family, ensures that there is good maternal child health care, and there is good nutrition and health education. Okay, so importance of the family as a unit is very important, so that diseases can be prevented and can be treated correctly. So the quality of life of a family as a unit is very important for us to ensure health care. The next is environmental health. So in environmental health, we already had a separate topic on environment. So the main aspects are air, food, water and other aspects. Okay, soil and things like that. So sanitation, health conditions of work, all these aspects are part of environmental health. So this we have already studied as a separate topic. Then health statistics, you understand statistics because they will help us to understand which disease is present in which part of the country and why it is present. See, if you twist the statistics, you can convert a deadly disease into a disease which has no effect. Okay, so these days we see in India there are lakhs of cases, whereas in other countries there are very less cases. But if you compare the size of India to those countries, or the population of India to those countries, you will find that India still has less number of cases per 1,000 population or per 10,000 population. So that is the power of statistics. Though the number of coronavirus cases in India may seem very huge, compared to the density of population in other countries, it may be reasonably less. Same way about the deaths. So all these aspects are health statistics. So if you understand statistics, you will be able to decipher the disease or understand the disease in a much better way. And biomedical research is very important, because without research we cannot go anywhere in healthcare. So health or healthcare is based on evidence-based practice or evidence-based medicine. So based on research we find new things, and that helps us to control and prevent diseases. So based on coronavirus also, the first, when it came into the world, we had very little research, very little information about the disease. Now people have done a lot of research. They are trying to find out which medicine works against the virus, how long there will be immunity against the virus. So many aspects of research is going on to the coronavirus. So the same way research has to be done for other diseases as well, so that we will be able to understand about the cause of the disease, consequence of the disease, and then we will be able to control the disease in a much better way. So this is the reason why biomedical research is important. So some of the diseases where top priority is given in research and training are malaria, schistosomiasis, uh, trypanosomiasis, filariasis, leishmaniasis, leprosy. So these are some of the diseases that affect a lot of people with a lot of stigma and other problems. So especially in the lower socioeconomic group of people in developing countries. So we have to focus on these so that health status of many people will be improved. Okay. Then health literature and information is something which the WHO focuses on. So there are a lot of new things that are created by WHO. Even now, myself and a few other director and other people, we are involved in creating e-modules for leprosy. E-modules are going to be on leprosy, which WHO is creating. So we are giving technical support for the WHO from Karigiri, so that these e-modules can be accessible through the internet for health workers as well as lay people, so that they understand about leprosy. Like that, WHO is focused on every other disease, so they have offices where they create such e-modules, literature, learning material. Okay. And the WHO also cooperates with other organizations. One organization is Karigiri, and it also cooperates with all the governments of member organizations. Okay. The structure of WHO is not very important, so I'm going to skip it. You can read it if you want to know about it. But one important aspect about this WHO is the Southeast Asia region, also called as CRO. Okay, so Southeast Asia Regional Office is called CRO. So it is one of the regions, and its headquarters is in New Delhi. And there are 11 member organizations: India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Indonesia, Korea, Maldives, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Timor. So these are the countries part under the Southeast Asia Regional Organization. That is why when Karigiri is involved in leprosy care, people from Bangladesh, Bhutan, Indonesia, Korea, Maldives, these places, they come to Karigiri for leprosy training. You would have seen in the last 3-4 years, we have had people from Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh come to Karigiri for training in leprosy. So it's not just in leprosy, but in other diseases as well. We get people from these CRO countries to get trained in leprosy. So some of the major activities of the CRO office is malaria eradication, TB control of other communicable diseases, and all these areas. Okay, so they do these functions. So other than this WHO, what are the other agencies that are involved in healthcare, global health or international health? Are other United Nations agencies like the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. They are mainly focused, or UNICEF as we call it, is focused on child care and prevention of child labor, all these aspects. Okay, child nutrition, child welfare, education of children. So all these factors which are not really too important for you. Okay, then other agencies are United Nations Development Fund, which helps in technical attendance assistance to member nations. UN funds for population activities. See, population is a main factor which affects the health of people. If there is too much population, then people are living in overcrowded areas, people have poor quality of life, they are prone to diseases. So the population activities fund focuses on family welfare, including family planning, then health and infrastructure. Then the FAO is mainly to raise the living standards, improve nutrition, and fisheries, forestry, farming. So all these areas they are involved in. Then the FFHC, or Freedom from Hunger campaign, mainly to prevent hunger, and they want to avoid malnutrition and to improve awareness against malnutrition. Then the ILO, the International Labour Organization. See, workplace, we have studied about occupational health. The workplace is a very important place where you can get diseases. So the ILO helps to prevent such occupational health problems and maintain the standard of working people. Okay, the World Bank is important source of funds or money. So without money you cannot have any health program, because everything costs money. So the World Bank provides finance for various projects, not just health but also other areas, because electricity, roads, railways, agriculture, all these are related to healthcare. So they provide funds for all these areas so that the overall health of the people can be improved. And the International Red Cross, you've heard about Red Cross. So it's a humanitarian movement, and they mainly focus on protecting the human life and health, so that all the human beings will be without suffering. Okay, so that is about the global health. And lastly, you have to understand about medical tourism. Okay, this is something that has come up recently. So what is medical tourism? Medical tourism is nothing but people traveling to other countries to get treatment, medical treatment. So why do people go to other countries to get treatment? Who goes to other countries? See, in India, if you see, the rich people, ministers and other people, especially the rich people, they go to other countries when they are sick. So why do they go to other countries? Because they feel the health services there are much better. So they get the latest treatment, best equipments are available. So that is the reason why people travel abroad. So from less developed countries or poorer countries or countries with less health infrastructure, they go to countries with better health infrastructure to get treatment. But there is a reverse of this also, which is also part of medical tourism. See, these days people come from rich countries to the less developed countries, especially countries like India, where India may not be a developed nation, we are still a developing nation, but our healthcare system is developed and is on par with developed countries. So it is equal to healthcare available in countries like Western countries. So the people from other countries come to India to get treatment here. So why do they come here? There are three reasons for that. One is there is less cost. See, the treatment of diseases in Western countries is very, very expensive. So people come here because including the travel, stay and the treatment, the cost is less than what they would have spent in their own country. So people come here for low cost treatment, low cost but high quality care. Okay, then people come to India for reduced waiting time. In countries like UK and US, if you have to undergo elective surgery, then there is a long waiting period. Okay, whereas in India we have less waiting period. So people come here for less waiting period and good treatment. And not only that, they also come here so that they can enjoy the culture and they can also get the treatment for the disease at the same time. So this is about medical tourism and is part of the global health or international health. So we'll go to the last topic of this subject, which is healthcare of the community. Okay, so this you would have studied in community healthcare, but anyway, because it's part of this subject also, I'll go over it. So what is community health? Community health is the status of a defined group of people and the actions and conditions to promote, protect and preserve healthcare. So in a community, all communities are formed by groups of people. So their actions and conditions will promote or protect and preserve the health, or do the opposite. If they are not proper, then it will cause disease. But if they do the right things, then it will promote, protect and preserve the health of the people. So the people themselves won't know about how to protect their health, promote their health or preserve the health. So it is the role of the community health worker to protect, promote and preserve the health of the people in the community. Okay, hope you understood that. It's very simple. The people themselves will not know how to protect their health or promote the health. So the health worker goes to the community and understands the community's lifestyle and ensures that they modify their lifestyle a little bit so that they will be able to promote, protect and preserve their health. Okay, so how do the most basic thing is understanding the community. So how do we understand the community? There are three main factors related to community health. One is the physical factors, then the social and cultural factors, and then the individual behavior. So the physical factors include the geographic area, that whether it is dry area, whether it is a rainy area, whether it is a hilly area. So all these factors are the physical factors. So all these affect the health of the people. If you are in a dry area, then there is less water. So if there is less water, you are in poor sanitation, that causes disease. So if you are in a rainy area, then there is stagnant water. Then if there is a lot of mosquitoes, you get malaria. So that is how the physical factors can affect the health of a person. Then the environment. So if there is a lot of pollution, then that can cause disease. Then the size of the community. If there is a lot of people living in a particular area, then there is overcrowding, poor sanitation, poor houses, poor effluent water treatment, then that can cause diseases. Then social and cultural factors like traditions, prejudices, beliefs, all these can also cause diseases. The economy, politics, socio-economic status, all these affect the health of a person. So that is why you have to understand the community in all these aspects before we intervene in the community. Once we have understood the community, we go for community organizing. So community organizing is, we find ways in which we can identify the problems and then we can prevent the problem. So first thing in this is recognizing the issue. So we have to understand what problem is present. Then we have to gain community entry. You have to talk to the village heads and then make them understand the importance of community healthcare. And once the village heads have been talked to, then you can organize all the people of the community to come together, and then you assess the community, have goals and priorities, and finally you come to a solution so that the people can people can overcome the disease. Okay, so these are the various ways in which you can do community organizing. So let us see what is the role of a health worker or a medical sociologist in the community. There are different roles. The first role is a clinician role or a care provider. Sometimes we can say this is a doctor's role also. Okay, in community there are not a lot of doctors available, so sometimes the health worker or a sociologist has to take up the role of a clinician. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to promote healthcare and make sure that there is holistic healthcare or all-round health promotion. Okay, so clinics can be held for immunization specifically for children. Okay, family planning programs, cholesterol screening programs, behavioral problems, adolescent health care, counseling for people affected by various diseases. So all these are part of this clinician's role. Then educator's role. So the healthcare worker or a sociologist can also be a health educator. So you have to teach the community based on, if you are going to a school, you can teach about adolescent health care, how they should take care of their health as an adolescent, how to prevent pregnancy, how to use sanitary napkins. So these are some of how to take care of their eyes, how to take bath every day, what is the importance of brushing the teeth. So all these are for school children. Okay, same way you can also have old age or geriatric healthcare, or you can focus the disease for specific conditions like typhoid or leprosy or malaria, or you can have specialized camps like eye promotion camps, how to ensure good eyesight. So these are some of the things that you can do, and you can teach the people about self-care and various other aspects. Then the next role is as an advocate. So what is an advocate? Advocate is a person who fights for the rights. Okay, so every human being has rights, and each person in the community, whether they are poor, rich, sick or healthy or disabled or not disabled, they all have rights, and you have to ensure that their rights are maintained in the community. Then you can also work as a manager. So you have to ensure that you find out the needs of the client and ensure health needs of the client, and ensure that the health needs of the people in the community are met. So what are the health needs? They may not have good drinking water, they may have poor sanitation, they may have overcrowding, the wastewater may not be going to the right place. So there are various ways in which you can see how diseases are caused, and then you ask the people about their problems and then find solutions for the problem. A manager always is a person who manages problems. So you will be identifying problems and then managing them. Then you have to be an organizer in the community. So what do you do? What do you organize? you find out what to do, what decisions have to be made, where the clinic has to be kept, so whether the treatment and the solutions provided are cost effective. So all these have to be organized by you. And as a health worker or a medical sociologist, you also have to be a leader in the community. Okay, so what do you have to do? You have to influence the other people. See, their village already has a village head, but they will look up to you because you are an educated person who has gone there to help them to prevent disease or to treat a particular disease. So you have to act like a leader. You have to motivate the people. You have to direct them on what is the best way to prevent diseases. You have to have good communication skills, and if there is a conflict between the people or different groups of people, then you have to manage and solve their problems and coordinate with everybody so that they are able to live in peace in a healthy way in the community. And finally, you have to be a controller and evaluator. Okay, why do you have to be a controller and evaluator? After all the work is done, you have found the problem, you have solved the problem, you have been a leader, you have organized things, and you have ensured that there is a healthcare system in place in the community. So you have to monitor the system and see if it is being followed at regular intervals. You have to do follow-up every month or every 2 months. You have to visit, and slowly the number of visits can decrease because the system has to take over and it has to run smoothly. And if there are any problems, you have to ensure that you reassess and then solve those problems so that the community takes up the responsibility for the healthcare. So initially you will be involved in the community, and slowly you will step outside and ensure that the system works by itself so that people are maintaining their healthcare through proper sanitation, hygiene and nutrition and other aspects. Okay, so that is the overall role of a health worker or a medical sociologist in the community health area. Okay, so now let us see the last bit, which is the activities of healthcare of community. So what are the major goals? First thing is care of the ill, disabled and suffering in a non-hospital setting. Okay, so we saw in the mental health how people who were institutionalized, or even disabled people like polio homes, mental retardation homes, how they were institutionalized in the 1950s and 1970s. But now the priority is to ensure that people who are affected by illness, whether it is a disability of the physical body or the mental aspects, they are able to get rehabilitated within their home setting or the community setting and in a non-hospital setting. So that is a major activity of the community healthcare. The next is support and development of well-being through lifestyle. See, well-being means you are healthy without disease. So you have to support and develop the well-being through lifestyle modifications and other aspects. Then you have to ensure mutual caring is there in the community. There is self-responsibility regarding health and well-being. See, how many days can a hospital or a doctor be in charge for a community and visit the community every day? One particular day you have to ensure that the community takes up the responsibility. That is when healthcare will be available and healthcare will become universal. So that is the main role, self-responsibility of the community members regarding health and well-being. Then promotion of relative safety in the environment while conserving resources. So resources are available, but they are not unlimited. So you have to ensure that there is enough So the other things is settings for the community work. So where do we do community work? We do community work in different places. One is the home of the affected people. So you visit the home of the person who is affected and you do community work in the home. Then you do community work in community health centers. So every village has got community health centers where the community work can be done. Then schools. So you can go to schools and have school health programs. And you have other places like businesses, industries where you do community health work, and places like residential institutions for old age homes. So these are places where you can have community health programs. Even in religious organizations like a temple or a church, outside that you can have a community health setting, because these are places where large number of people will visit and they will need health care to be provided. So in the general community you can visit. So these are the areas in which a healthcare worker has a role to play You can visit the homes or community health centers, schools, so any public place, and you can have you can work there. So these are the settings or places where community health work can be done. Then the final aspect is health prevention. Okay, so there are three things: primary health prevention, secondary health prevention, and tertiary health prevention. Okay, so what is primary health prevention? Is health education, nutrition, individual development, good working environment, recreation, resting, pre-marriage counseling, education, genetic counseling, regular physical examination, immunization, hygiene, environmental sanitation, occupational safety, prevention of accidents, avoid cancers, avoid allergies. So these are the primary ways in which you can prevent diseases. Health can be promoted and maintained in if you follow all these things. Okay, then secondary prevention includes identifying cases in the community, and then you screen and test people, have special physical examination, then treat and prevent the progress of illness, avoid spreading of disease, and reduce disability time. So the first thing, the primary prevention, is to prevent the disease. Okay, so if you follow all those things under primary prevention, you can avoid the disease. But the second thing is, in case you get the disease, then you have to identify the disease and then screen and then have physical examination done and treat the disease so that it can be prevented from further progression, and avoid the spreading of disease to other people, and if it's already affected a person, reduce the disability time. Okay, so primary prevention is to avoid the disease itself. Secondary prevention is when the person has already got the disease, to avoid other people from getting it and from the person to recover quickly. And finally, tertiary prevention of the disease includes treating the disease and stopping the disease progress, avoiding complication side effects, limit the chance for disability, and finally to provide rehabilitation both for the physical body and the mental aspects, so that the person is physically and psychologically well, and then provide occupational therapy and availability of long-term care in case of chronic illness. So these are the ways in which a community health worker will deal with health prevention or health promotion and disease prevention in the primary, secondary, and tertiary ways. Okay, so with this we have completed medical sociology 2. All the best, study well for your exams. I will be sending the notes to you by WhatsApp. Thank you.